Ready?
Yes.
Awesome. I always never know when it goes live, and I always just wait for this notification. And then every time I watch it, I hear myself say this. So, oh, perfect. Okay. We just went live. Awesome. All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to JakeSussmanLive. I know it's been a while since I saw you on Monday. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jake Sussman, and I'm a dyslexia and ADHD influencer and entrepreneur and founder of Superpower Consulting, a global mentorship firm that connects kids with learning and attention challenges to their own mentor. Now, since quarantine started, I have been interviewing many different people, from parents to industry leaders to doctors to business leaders, and also people like you and I. And we all have at least one thing in common. We are passionate and we have a form of learning and attention challenge. Now, I have someone that I want to introduce you to, and I'm very honored to introduce you to Faith Borkowsky. Now, Faith is the founder of High Five Literacy and academic coaching, with over 30 years of experience as a classroom teacher, reading and learning specialist, regional literacy coach, administrator, and tutor. Faith is a certified dyslexia practitioner and provides professional development for teachers and school districts, as well as parent workshops, presentations, and private consultations. Faith is also the author of award-winning book, Failing Students or Failing Schools, a parent guide to reading instruction and intervention, which we'll talk about, and the If Only I Would Have Known series, which we'll also talk about. She is also a board member of Teach My Kid to Read, a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to support and empower students, teachers, and parents through education so all kids, including those with dyslexia, learn to read. Wow.
That was a mouthful.
Woo! That is a bio, but you know what? You're just doing the most amazing things. And Faith, thank you for not only your time for joining us this afternoon, but just for what you do and your commitment to the next generation. Okay, because we need you. So if you're tuning in, just let me know where you're watching from. Okay, please just share wherever you're watching from. There's nothing better than community and sharing. There's so much power in sharing because we have a lot more in common than we realize. All right, and just know that you can ask whatever questions you want to Faith. I'll be managing the comments. There's about a 15-second delay, so just bear with me a little bit. All right, so Faith, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to let's go back a little bit. We have a lot of parents watching this right now, and who maybe their kids are just realizing that they have dyslexia or learn differently, or maybe they've been in it for a while and are just getting pushed around. We're in April, which means that we've been going through almost a full year of this crazy schoolness of, online learning, sometimes in class, different environments. So I want you to, let's go back to the beginning a little bit about how did you start? How did you get into this field?
Mm-hmm. So, my intention was to become a classroom teacher, and I thought that's where I would stay. My background is in elementary ed and special ed, and I dual majored in school. And then I went on to get a master's in reading because I thought I would get some tips on how to do it better, how to teach reading to all children. My master's taught me some things about literacy, but not really, it did not give me the tools that I was hoping for. I went on to get a degree, a certificate, an advanced certificate in administration and supervision. And while I'm teaching, I'm always looking for answers.
Mhm.
And the internet was not prevalent at the time. The answers were not really there for me. So I would go to bookstores and libraries. And this book pretty much fell into my lap, off the shelf. I thought that was meant to be because the book changed my life. And after reading this book, I was just blown away that there really is a way to teach reading. So I started to self-educate. I started to go for professional development, traveling to different places and learning. And then once I knew how to teach, I was not going back. And my whole goal was to share this with other people.
Yeah.
So I ended up joining this initiative called Reading First, which was, it happened over 20 years ago. And I thought that would be the end of the discussion, that after people would just know, they would embrace the science of reading, and that would be the end of it. But here we are 20 years later, still talking about the same things. And I feel that there is an instructional problem that has not been addressed correctly. So my goal is to share this with parents now, to share this with the community, to share it with people like you, Jake, who probably grew up not feeling very good about themselves for a while until they did better, they knew better, they learned, and then started to also want to share this message of there being a better way.
Right.
You know, I just felt that going through the front door in the schools affected some people, but it did not do what I had hoped, where there would be this mass understanding and everybody getting on board. So my goal now is to go in a different direction, and it has been for the last 5 years. So I've been pretty vocal, and that's my mission.
I can tell you've been vocal. It's remarkable. And this is going to be a really cool interview because I was the kid and I actually still get triggered just by the word reading. When I was younger, Faith, I would fall on the floor and my stomach, I would have physical reactions whenever someone either mentioned the word reading or whenever I would pick up a book. And it's so funny because, you know, we're talking about reading and I've overcome a lot of these challenges, but there's still that trigger of going back to young Jake in middle school in 6th grade, being forced to read out loud in the middle of the class when I'm 3 grade levels behind in reading. I have a nut. So I want to explore this a little bit with you today. Not only it's going to help me, but I think it's going to help some other parents because we can teach kids how to read, but there's a hurdle we got to get over. And that's the trigger that the pain has caused.
Yes.
So how can we work with that student? Like how do you work with that student?
All right, so that's a great question. Well, first of all, I have to tell you, I'm old school. And it's tough love. I mean, and
I love it already.
It's tough love. And for most children, I'm going to be honest, there are some kids where the emotional pain is so much that I really can't start until some of this is actually worked through. Very few, but there are some where it's just that hard. However, once I do start with kids, the first thing that I tell these kids is you will read. It's not like you can read, you will read. And
Nice.
you will do this, and we're going to work with you. This is not where you're on your own. I work with parents as a partnership. My whole goal is that we're all on board, and
Yes.
this becomes a team effort. that you're not just hanging out there yourself. This is a team effort. And I'm no nonsense, you know, but they know I love them. So I think that's it. It's like, you know, this is, I am who I am, you know, I want what I want. I'm tough, but at the same time, it's like, come on, you can do this again. You can do it again. And at the beginning, it's tough. It is tough. But once they see success, success breeds success. And you got to get through to that first bit of success. And I constantly make it known when I see the smallest little step, the baby step.
Yeah.
And I jump on that. And I tell, come on, recognize that. This is amazing. We celebrate every little win. Yeah. So that's the beginning. But, you know, I am tough.
You know, sometimes that toughness, and that word for a lot of times, it can go in multiple directions, because there's the tough of I am the authority and you listen to me. Yeah. That's one tough. But then there's the other tough of I see where you're going. I know where you're going. You may not see it right now because it's foggy in your world, but I know where you're going. And that is what I believe is a quality of an amazing leader. It's like, when you're helping someone grow, do you treat them where they are currently in the moment or prior to, or do you see them where they're going? And that's where growth happens. And I think that's the tough we're talking about.
Yes. And I also tell them it's not your fault. I think kids internalize this as if there's something wrong with me. I failed my parents. I'm failing everyone. And when I start working with them, the message is always, no, the schools failed you. You did not fail. And that's really important. And I tell them right out, so this isn't your fault. You were not taught.
Right, right. And I think that we're so quick to point fingers and to try to find all the other things that like how is it my fault? Mm-hmm. But it's not, because a lot of times it's the product of the environment, right? So, okay, now we're helping our kids find that kind of motivation, right? And have you always wanted to go into this field, or was there like that aha moment of like, this is what I gotta do? And was that coming from when you originally were sharing?
Well, if you go back to what even maybe want to become a teacher, I could tell you that there's a big difference in age between my sister and me. And she's the younger one. And she struggled with language. She was a late talker, just had her own struggles. And I watched my parents suffer with her. You know, I was old enough to kind of watch some of this going on. And, you know, because my mother had to put so much into my younger sister, I think I grew up quickly. And so I always had that in me to want to save the underdog.
Yeah.
So I guess it goes back to that in terms of always wanting to right a wrong. You know, it was this sense of, no, you know, and talking up for the people who couldn't really talk up for themselves. So I guess that's the start.
Yeah.
And then as far as a career choice, I worked in a camp for underprivileged kids.
Mm.
That was, it's called Camp Sussex. And at the beginning, I cried. my boyfriend, who was now my husband at the time, encouraged me to go to work in this camp. And honestly, the camp was just, it didn't have bathrooms in the bunks. It was not comfortable, not my city comfortable life. But, here I am, I'm going to the country, I'm using an outhouse type of thing. I'm showering out, outside.
It sounds like Rocky training, but that's
Kind of was, taking the princess
right.
out of the palace. Not that I grew up in a palace by any means. I grew up with very modest means, but what I mean is I didn't rough it. And I saw these kids being handed clothes for the summer. We gave them shirts and shorts and socks. And this way, everybody was dressed in the same clothes so that nobody there felt like they didn't have, that they had like a little uniform. Navy shorts, white shirts, they were given towels, they were given bedding. That experience changed me.
Mm.
And it was a camp where I would say many of them came from the inner city. Many of the kids came from the inner city. It was probably mixed Black and white pretty equally, I would think. It was a Jewish camp, but it was open to everyone. And I have to say that experience changed me. Yeah. Because I was helping these kids, not with reading, but with the emotional stuff, staying up with them, mothering them, talking to them. And I just felt, you know what, this is what I have to at least take in college. I have to take an education course. Mm. And that was probably the beginning.
Wow. Faith, I love that. I love that. When I was a freshman in college, I made up a research project, okay? And I made up this research project to have an excuse to get in front of CEOs and owners of businesses. And the idea was I'm trying to find a correlation between what are all of these successful people, what do they all say? What are they all saying? Or is there something that they are doing or that caused them to have that breakthrough for them to either find that success or find their passion? And all of them. I've interviewed people from hedge funds to limousine companies, like a local limousine service. And all of them said one thing, the thing that you just said was that they had their aha moment was during a time of least expecting. And when they were challenged to go outside of their comfort zone.
Yes.
And no matter what that is, and I think, by the way, that is something that as a community and for all of you watching, it's something for us to all think about, because when we go outside of our comfort zone, that is unknown and uncharted territory, but that is where we're going to grow when we are uncomfortable. And when kind of bringing it back down to reading, isn't that kind of like the same thing? It's like you're pushing through this obstacle, this thing that if you have dyslexia, and the amount of kids that I say I can't read because of my dyslexia. Did I just cut out? Okay, sorry. Okay, so I was saying, okay, so I was saying, sorry about that. I can't tell you the amount of kids that I've met that said, I can't read because of my dyslexia.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So exactly. It's a hurdle. It is definitely a hurdle. And I think you used a great analogy. For sure. It's definitely going out of a comfort zone and having to really encourage people that it's okay. And that after failing, and I say this all the time, why should these kids trust me after they've been failed numerous times? So, and I recognize that when these kids look at me, first it's like, oh, here's another one who thinks she's going to try to get me to read, and after teachers, tutors, and all well-meaning people have helped trying to use something that was just ineffective, there was this trust factor to
Yes.
build trust. And basically that's part of it. It's not just teaching the science, but it's
Right.
about building trust and reaching people where they are and understanding the psyche. Yes.
You know, and I've said this before multiple times, there's a lot of people think learning is where it starts. You just go to class and you start learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a whole journey that has to happen before that. That's willingness to learn, right? That's the trust factor. It's a motivating factor. And when there's no trust with anyone, forget kids,
Mm-hmm.
but just with anyone, if you don't trust someone, how are you supposed to open up and be open to learn?
Yes.
So what are some ways that you build trust with your kids?
Mm-hmm. So I'm a big believer in giving people a lot of support, but then stepping away also
Right.
and pointing out when they could actually do something. So as soon as I think you can do this now, come on, let's go. But I do a lot of hand holding first. And I don't throw them in to this immediately. I kind of know what they can do and what they can't do. And if I push too much, I back off. I'm like, okay, we need to take a step back and go over it. And I'll take that responsibility. I push too much.
Right.
And
And parents, by the way, really quick to interrupt your parents, this is so, and educators, if you're watching this is so important because when we get impatient, because a lot of times our kids may do the same thing. When I was younger, I would have the same issues and reactions. Okay. I would say the same things. I hate myself. I hate reading. This is stupid. I don't want to do this. And I'd freak out. And I would do it all the time. But the thing is, our kids are so sensitive to our parents' emotions. Okay. And just a quick side note, it's like if you have a dog, how does your dog know when you're upset or happy or angry? They feel it. They don't speak. They're not human, but they know. And the same thing happens to humans. So we have to be really cognizant of this, of when we're helping our kids with their homework or or for teaching our kids in the classroom, and we're seeing them get frustrated and it keeps happening, we have to try so hard to keep our emotions under control. And if we have to remove ourselves from the situation, okay, but our kids are going to feel it. And that's where it gets challenging.
And I just, I want to say also to those moms out there, I know Jake posted super mom and I thank you, but I'm no super mom. And I just want to say, I did the best I could, like all moms, but certainly with my own kids, I made many mistakes, many, many mistakes. It's much easier when
Yeah.
it's someone else's child. So I just want to, make that clear that I'm no super mom, but I recognize the importance of keeping calm, keeping it straightforward, complimenting often, but not in a fake way. Like, you know what I mean? Like truly recognizing when something is good and working, and a lot of encouragement, a lot of hand holding. And I have to tell you, adults need that too. They really do. I mean, when I was a regional coach, I used to go into schools and work with teachers. And you would think, okay, teachers, they're used to just getting up and starting. There were many teachers who needed me with them to open up a box of materials. So when I used to start a professional development, I used to actually take the plastic off the boxes with them because the boxes would sit on the shelf until I got there. They were afraid. They called it the scary box, because it was going to be something new that they had to do. So teachers need to keep that in mind too, that anything new is scary and you need a lot of hand holding.
Right. You ready for the greatest example though? Look at COVID. Look at quarantine. The whole world stopped, including schools. Everyone, everything, their breaks went on. And I think this is the greatest lesson that as a society we've learned, is that how are we measuring our kids? Are we doing it wrong? Because what COVID has shown us, no exam could have prepared us for. That's adaptability. Those that were able to adapt were able to get through in a way of growth, and those that had that struggled with adapting got hit the hardest. And that's, I think it's an amazing lesson, an opportunity for, I'm hoping that schools are going to start to see maybe there's more to just IQ based testing that has to happen in the classroom to prepare our kids for success.
Yeah, so you said a couple of things there. So as far as the pandemic, what I think is interesting is a lot of people now are saying, oh, now with the pandemic and COVID, these kids lost so much. These kids have been, they're behind. They're behind. Yes, they are behind. But for the kids who struggled already, this happened before COVID. So poor reading instruction happened way before COVID. COVID just now shined a light on this issue. It became glaring what a problem it is, and parents started to actually see some of what was going on. And what's interesting is what might have passed as reading instruction in a classroom couldn't happen on the computer.
Right.
It really couldn't, because all that kind of fluff on the computer was garbage. And so what I'm trying to say is it's definitely harder to do all this on the computer. So it's when you have a group of kids, it's impossible to reach all of them and meet their needs doing it this way. So props to people who are doing this. So this is no knock on teachers. I'm talking about that the problems were there before. The instruction really now is just right in your face with this, and you can't ignore it anymore. So you're right, it brought something to light that wasn't there. And what you said about adaptability was very interesting. It forced us all, and I am not tech savvy, Jake, at all. This is not my forte, but you had to adapt. We had to make this work, and we're doing it. It's and there was actually some positive things that came out of it, because I'm reaching people who are out of the Long Island area now. because
Mm.
I'm doing it this way.
Yeah.
So, there are positives. There's always a silver lining, but I just want to make it clear that COVID did not cause these problems. And schools are going to say they are behind because you can't compare. It's COVID, it's this, it's that. Those problems were there before. So
Yeah.
I want to put that out there.
No, and I think they were, and they have been for, we hear all the stories. I mean, it's been happening for generations. It has been. So these problems are nothing new.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is important. And that's why, like, the social emotional side to this, when you have organizations out there that are working to help bring access to kids, like Nessie, for example, or like, just with what you're doing with virtual learning, and with Superpower Consulting. I mean, look, through mentorship, we've been able to reach kids virtually in 4 weeks anywhere in the world,
Yeah. It's amazing.
and now they have someone that they can connect with that is the older version of them. So you have like that piece, then you have the reading specialty, and you've been able to reach kids beyond just the physical borders of the geographic location of the center. You can now reach kids anywhere as long as there's an internet connection. That to me is one of the most amazing silver linings of COVID, of the quarantine.
Yeah. Well, look, you watched my interview from yesterday. The ladies who interviewed me, they are in the Philly area. So they were from Pennsylvania. And the work that I'm doing there could never have happened without this online learning. So, to be able to reach people
Right.
who normally would not get this message, would not hear this information, is amazing. And what you're doing, Jake, is incredible, because you can truly identify with these kids, and the people who are working for you could really reach these kids in a way that people my age cannot. I'm still mom, or I could even say grandma soon, it's kind of scary, but it's true. There's as much as I could do, and I think that I do my best in reaching those kids on an emotional level, the best that I could. It's not like coming from someone who's young, who's gone through some hardships, who can identify with them. So I think, your business is just incredible, and what you're doing is just really amazing, just amazing stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that the reason why I brought that up is because everyone has important roles to play in this process. I call it's a revolution in education. It's happening right now. It's happening because the only way we're going to change is when it impacts our life. That's human behavior. The only way that we're going to change a habit is when that habit is forced to be broken.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, I mean, I was hearing kids say that they miss school for the first time. And like they actually miss going to class and being with their friends and missing that social component. And I think parents have found for the first time, instead of the end of it, right? The end of the day, how is your day, sweetie? It was good. Okay. How about some ice cream, right? So instead of that, there's the watching what's happening throughout the day. And that's something else I think what parents, if you're watching, seriously, if you want to participate, please share like some of your experience in this, because I want to know, especially talking to Faith, who has so much experience with helping to connect kids to reading, to their ability, because it is a human right. And it is so important because it's opportunity that comes with that. So now, Faith, tell me a little bit about your book, because I see it behind you, and to be honest, it's on my reading list, and I'm gonna be ordering it. It's on Amazon, so I highly recommend getting it. It's apparently amazing, and I'm excited to dive in myself and read it. Tell me a little about this book.
Well, I just want to tell you, if you're comfortable listening to a book, it's
I
on
am.
audiobook too.
Okay, great. I'm an auditory.
Yeah. So, that I'm just putting out there. There's an audio book. It's on, an ebook format. And so this is the book. And failing students or failing schools. Some people don't like that title because they think, ooh, failing schools, like I'm blaming teachers as if it's teacher blame. No, I'm not blaming teachers. What I'm saying is it's not what you think. We can't keep putting this on kids. This is an instructional issue. I didn't learn how to teach kids correctly. So, and I've said it before, I've used the expression dyslexia. I was a dysteacher. I really was. And for many years, I was a dysteacher because I did not know how to teach kids who had dyslexia or any type of severe reading issue. And, if we don't know, then it's not our fault. But someone is to blame here. And it's the universities who aren't training the teachers correctly with the right instruction. We could say the publishers are complicit in this as well, because they're making some nice bang off of kids suffering, right? And it's time where we just said enough is enough. And, some people probably think I'm a little bit rough around the edges. I don't play in that field nicely, where I'm going to be nice and wait and hope for the best. No, it's kids' lives. And so we have to stand up and say what is. And I'm speaking from experience. So it's not like I hear something and I'm saying it. No, this is from experience. After working with many, many kids over years and years and years, and seeing the difference in what instruction can do, I put this book out there to be accessible. It is not written for a college professor. It's in practical, everyday, straightforward language so that parents could wrap their heads around this and say, now I understand. Now I could go advocate for my child. And at least I have some basic lingo so that when I sit in on these meetings, they know that I understand. The parents I work with know more than the schools know. And that's the truth.
And that's that needs to happen.
Yeah. And many of the parents end up going into advocacy. So you work with Denora. So Denora is an amazing advocate for kids. And not to say that she's not a professional advocate. I'm talking about just somebody who steps up and talks for children. And that's from sitting in with me. And, I love hearing her. She sounds like she's an educator herself because she just is on a mission.
Yeah.
And then I have parents who become OG tutors themselves because after they see the difference, they're inspired to want to do this. So it becomes this effect of parents learning, getting savvy, understanding, speaking the language, and they are the ones who will drive change. The parents are going to be the ones who drive change. I've waited many years for the schools to do it. And I'm happy to work with any school who wants to get on board and use me for professional development. I'm working with school districts now. That's something I do, but I am not going to wait. You know, my mission is to let families know so that kids don't go on year after year and suffer.
I'm sick of preaching to the choir either.
That's right.
I can't stand that. And you know what? And I'm my goal is I want to host a conference, and I'm going to invite whoever wants to get involved to do it. Okay. And I'm already talking to some great organizations about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to host a conference whose sole mission is to drive change. Like, I want to host this conference in DC, and then after this conference, we all march and talk to our congressmen and women. Like, I want to actually bring that change. And we have to, because that's the only way it has to happen. Because look, we're talking on Facebook, and hopefully it gets shared around to, you know, and I encourage everyone to share this so that other people that may not be in our inner circles will see this.
Right.
But it's important. I want to read you a comment someone wrote. Jennifer wrote this, and I just really want to share this because it's important to express here. She said, "I am a teacher, and I know you are not blaming me, but I can do something now to help and fix it. I have been teaching for 22 years, and I just recently started my journey of discovering how to change my ways to help my struggling students. I am thankful for my district for listening and allowing me to voice my concerns for my students, and no retaliation." That's so awesome. And I think, and I'm open to your thoughts on this too, Faith, is I think the way that we can bring change now without the decision makers is we have the power to change what comes out of our mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we can control, really.
Yes.
Everything else is on the other person, but I'm like, you know what? We can change what comes out of our mouth, how it's expressed, the tone, the way that it's received. So I think that we like to say, you know, oh, that would be nice, but there's actionable things we could do now. What are some actionable steps forward that we can do today?
Okay, so, you know, a lot of people right now are talking about equity and social justice. That's a huge, you know, you're seeing it in the news all the time. That's huge now, social justice and equity. This is an equity issue. This is a social justice issue. So I think what we can do is stop trying to just make change for a disabled group. And I'm saying that, you know what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah. You know what I mean? What I think is the problem is, and has been, is we are focusing on what people perceive as a small group of people. And how dare this small group change schools? I think that's the mindset where it's basically, well, you know what, most of the kids can learn this way, you know, with leveled books or balanced literacy. So why should we just bend over backwards to change a system for this small group of dyslexic kids or learning disabled kids or minority kids? And I think the conversation, and I've been saying this forever, and that's what this is about, that this goes beyond dyslexia. This goes beyond, you know, ADHD. This goes beyond Black kids, Hispanic kids. This is social justice. This is, if we think about it, every child is entitled to get an education. And instead of focusing on this small group to try to get, you know, everything changed for the small group, and not to say, and I hope you take this the way it's meant to be, not to say that I don't recognize dyslexia, not to say that there aren't kids who struggle more than others, not to say that race is not a factor, because it is, but we have to approach this from the big picture. And I've been saying that. I think we have to start saying every kid in every classroom needs to be taught correctly, and not just hope that some kids will then get the right instruction if they get the right IEP, if they get a neuropsychological report. All that adds up. My tutoring adds up. My hope is that I won't do private tutoring eventually, and I could just do prevention. That would be wonderful. But right now, I make my money on private tutoring to survive. But then my second job is opening my mouth up. So, and that I don't get paid for. So I don't have to do all this. I spend hours and hours and hours answering questions, answering private emails, and I'm not patting myself on the back. What I'm saying is that my goal is really to turn the tables upside down, not preach to the choir, not just be in this little silo of dyslexia advocates, because, people think they're going very far, but when you open yourself up and you talk to the world and you get into the trenches, they don't even know what you're talking about. Then that's what I laugh about this. It's like a lot of the dyslexia people and the experts in reading, they're like, oh, we're making strides, we're making strides, we're making strides, because you all talk to each other. It gives the appearance when you're in your own silo that your impact is bigger than it is.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not important, and I'm not minimizing what people are doing, but what I'm saying is it's inflated. Right. It's not truly accurate. That's what I'm trying to bring out.
No, and by the way, I also love a little bit of going towards the line too. I guess it's perfect, because that's where real conversation begins, and we're so aligned on this. It's unbelievable, because I have a passion for communication. It's my biggest passion, because I was told I would never be able to communicate. And I learned, to start, Martin Luther King's letter from Birmingham jail. And I continue to say this. Here you have King in Birmingham, Alabama, in jail, writing a letter to the white clergy, and not only getting them to do something, but to act. Now, there's so much to learn from that, because here we're trying to move the dial forward, but if we're talking the language that other people don't understand, it's not going to go anywhere. And that is something I believe. Look, Faith, 30% of college freshmen drop out of school in the US. Okay. I believe there is a huge the massive contributing factor to the fact that we don't teach students how to communicate properly, how to articulate the way they learn to those who don't understand. We invest. Ready for some controversy? Here we go. You ready? We invest in.
Bring it on.
Okay. People invest in tutors, in programs, in Orton Gillingham training, in all of these programs that are out there in private education. But what are we teaching these kids? Yes, they're learning in the moment. They're learning it. But when they're off on their own in college or in their job, or when no one's looking, are they able to articulate it to their peers or to their boss or to their professors? Because look, there's a huge communication gap. I mean, just look at the makeup of our political system today. It's a disaster, but that's a whole nother. But I'm just saying, you're right. because if we aren't focusing on, we can teach everyone, and that this is beyond dyslexia. This is a societal thing
Yes.
of communication. Reading comes first because you have to understand words and their meaning and the retort and rhetoric and the different emotions and appeals that come with reading and words, right? But then there's taking that and saying, okay, Faith, I need accommodations of someone who can't see. I can see fine, but I need everything on audio. So how can we work together this semester so that I can be successful, but also how can we work together? Because I want to be successful. How can we have with a conversation like that instead of going pointing fingers and saying, you're not doing this, I need you to do this, do this? That's, no one's going to want to listen to that. So I think that there's a lot of communication methodology alongside with the strategies that are being taught, like literacy and all different types of techniques. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And I think when we talk about communicating, we need to reach out to people who would not necessarily even know we exist, who, they would not find us. We have to find them. And that's what I'm involved in with Teach My Kid to Read. We're bringing this message to the community. And when the community understands what exactly the issues are and can articulate it, right? Not just go to the schools and be able to yell and scream, you need to give my kid the right IEP. I'm going to have, I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm going to do this. First of all, it's not even going to help half the time because, they're not necessarily acknowledging the problem even exists. They don't even understand how deep the problem is, the emotional impact, the effect that they're having. So by focusing on one child and saying, my kid needs this, my kid needs Wilson, my kid needs Orton Gillingham, and the fighting for that one kid, you might get what you want that one year, but then those parents are back at it again next year. It doesn't end. It's a yearly cycle of fighting and fighting and fighting. My thought is, understand what the reading process is. Understand how the brain works. Understand this so that when you go, you don't have to yell and scream. You could then share this with parents of kids who don't struggle. And what are they missing out? Oh, you know what? Your kid might read, but how is his spelling? Maybe he didn't learn to spell well because of the programs that they're using. Oh, your kid can read, but can he write? Oh, you know what? Maybe it's the program because your kid's not being taught in a structured way how to write. They have to understand the nature of the problem to be able to communicate it effectively. And then you get more people on your side. Being a lone ranger in a school system doesn't really change it for the masses. It changes it for your kid in the moment. And many times they're unhappy with the results. Trust me.
Right.
Many people think they won at the moment. Oh, we got this, we got that, we got that. And turns out they're not really getting a whole lot because the people they get don't necessarily know what they're doing. They might not be certified. They might not get enough hours doing it. And I'm not saying to parents, don't fight. It's your child and you're entitled to do that. But at the same time, you need to know that in order to make a big impact, you got to get to the masses. That's the main thing. You got to get to more people and not just your small little group who keeps saying the same thing to you and everybody pats each other on the back. Good job. Yeah, you did great, 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 great.
Right.
You need to reach other people.
And just to say too, like I think it's good to recognize that it is good to have community and to have that, and that's what we're talking about. Like
Yes.
we're all a community here, you know, and everyone has a very important role in the community, right? In the movement. Okay. There's those that are out there just getting beat up in the IEP meetings. There's those that are out there, you know, writing, you know, working to push legislation. There's those that are out there working with the kids. So everyone has a very important role. And I think for the parents and the teachers watching this, and maybe even kids, let's reflect on what do you want your role to be? Because I think it's you know it seems like a big undertaking. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, how am I ever going to bring this change? But it starts, one person turns to two people, turns to three, and all of a sudden you have momentum, and then you have something moving forward. And that's really that's where it all begins, you know. Like it's like that with Superpower Consulting. Look, we have 30 mentors. We've impacted almost 85 kids in a year. And like just that alone, it's just through even just the power of sharing, which is what we're doing now. I bet you there's someone listening to you, Faith, that maybe was having a bad day and was feeling defeated and heard you share and is now uplifted to make a difference, or to go out there and be like, you know what, it's going to be okay. I'm going to get through this, you know? So, and that's just that's just your share can impact someone else and then bring change in another field, you know?
And you know, I've been at those CSE meetings. I feel for every parent going through this. It is tough. Everybody's sitting at a table. The parent is just waiting to hear what's going to happen. It's hard. And of course, you're going to fight for your kid. You're a mama bear. You're going to fight for your kid. I get that. But when we talk about widespread, real change, it must be larger than a small group that we look at. We have to really open it up to more and more people and start bringing people in. You don't know. There are kids, they don't even know if they're dyslexic or not. The parents don't know. So they are missing this conversation. They just know their kids are not doing as well as they would have hoped. That's why we have to be able to talk to each other and communicate.
Right. And that's what we have to do. So I think this has been, first of all, so much fun. And parents, if you're watching this, we had some amazing comments here. But if you have questions, just I'm gonna hang out also. So just feel free to reach out to me. But if you want to get Faith's book, you can go get it on Amazon. We'll put the link in the comments here. But
I also want to say something. This is a really important book. We didn't talk about this, and I'm not going to spend time on it, but this is the book that you give to parents when they just have a baby or when they are, in preschool. This is for parents of young children. They need to read this because this could save heartache. This book is meant to be read by parents so that they know before their kids get to kindergarten and first grade what to look for. So if only I would have known, if they go to the website ifonlybooks.com, they could learn about this book. I'm not going to spend time talking about it, but this really could save a lot of heartache if they recognize some difficulties with language and understand how to build reading from the start, not just reading aloud, not just surrounding them with books, but understanding a little bit about the reading process. I just wanted to put that out there.
yeah, absolutely. So what we'll do is we'll put the links to everything. We'll put them in the chat. And if you are interested in reaching in contacting Faith for her services, where can people best reach you?
So, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, but my email address is faithborkowsky@gmail.com.
Awesome.
So it's my
Now,
name, no dot, no, nothing, just faithborkowsky@gmail.com.
awesome. Now, I have one last question for you. And I love asking this question. I want to take a minute to think about it. I'm going to just say a quick, just update to the community while you're thinking. But I want to know, what is your superpower? Okay. So while you're thinking, okay, I just want to share with the community that, at Superpower Consulting, our mentorship program for kids with dyslexia and ADHD, we are launching a 15% discount to anyone that reaches out to us and just say that you came watching this interview with Faith. This is an opportunity to give your kids the gift of having someone that's already been in their shoes, that they can relate to, that has felt their pain, and that they can just bond with through having the same type of learning challenge, who has already gone either in college or a young professional, and they can just have their own personal advocate. So if you would like to sign your kids up or learn more, just feel free to reach out to me. Visit our website at superpowerconsulting.com or our Facebook page. And just let me know again that you came watching this interview. Happy to give you about 15% off. Okay, now, Faith, what is your superpower?
I have 3 because I'm super powerful.
Oh my gosh, should I brace myself?
Okay, first one, I have an amazing husband and kids. So my superpower is that I always feel respected and loved. Really. So keep that in mind, that everybody, when you think about a superpower, you want to get people on your team. I have a great team, my family, so that's number
You have
one.
a strong unit. Yeah.
And not, so build that. The parents are listening. You are their superpower now. Just showing love, tough love, that's superpower. You can do it. You will do it. Number 2, Brooklyn. So I'm a Brooklyn girl. You could take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the girl.
Oh my God.
And so Brooklyn is my superpower because we talk straight. There's no nonsense. And I think that people who know me know that I'm no BS. I don't know how to do it any other way. That's who I am. I am what I am. That's number 2. So I don't know the Long Island fine ways of just being nice. I say it like it is. And then third superpower is, and this is as far as my teaching goes, my true superpower is I am able to break things down pretty well. So in other words, I always kind of think I'm explaining something, even if I'm talking to an adult, I always assume the person doesn't know anything. And I try to bring it down to a very practical, understandable level. I use a lot of analogies. I try to make it so that people can relate. So, and I think for that reason, parents trust me. I think for the most part, they trust me because they know that I'm on their team and I'm talking their language.
Wow. I got nothing else to say after that one. That's pretty super. That is pretty super. That's epic. That's awesome. Well, Faith, I mean, really, thank you for joining us today. It's been so much fun. And for our community members watching and for the new ones who just joined us, thank you for just hopping on. I do this Monday nights. I interview a young professional or college student with a learning difference to share their story. They're one of our mentors at Superpower Consulting. And then on Thursdays at about 12 o'clock Eastern, I interview a thought leader, change maker in this space that's driving change. So Faith is someone that I've admired and has just really looked up to your practices and your ethics and how you have been able to be so successful reaching children, because I didn't have that when I was younger in school, in public school. So just thank you for all that you do, and just keep changing the world.
No, I think you too, and you keep doing what you're doing. You're an impressive young man. You really are. So keep doing what you're doing. Excellent.
Mom, I hope you heard that.
That's right.
Thank you, Faith. I appreciate it.
Bye. Thank you.
Yes.